Hello to people watching. My trip to the shops was alright last night. I guess I should be very grateful. Maybe I did say it already. And of course I got more bad news from people sending stuff to me suggesting it's very, very bad. Apparently it's very, very, very bad at Costco in Thurrock, Essex, where the queue goes right outside the enormous Costco car park. I mean, is there really such a shortage of food? Are people so disorganised? I don't really know. I just watch a stream of David panicking on his stream with Church of Entropy. So panicked that they were talking David was talking hysterically about all the stuff that should already be in the public domain about washing one's hands and specialised knowledge about how many gloves to wear when you're operating on diseased people. I mean, we don't need to know that, do we? And what can we do anyway? We haven't got 3 pairs of gloves. It's all completely autistic. And then somebody pointed out to me that David isn't indeed autistic, but so I'm really pleased I never caught it live, because I would have been so exasperated and bored with this hysterical scaremongering. It was a 3-hour stream, and I don't think Jen got to speak hardly anything. She completely talked over by David, who kept pushing all his statistics and procedures and panic but don't panic and panic but don't panic. What's the point except to draw attention to yourself, or at the very least simply what just sort of look at me when I'm panicking, when you can read my thoughts, because I'll be looking at all these statistics and worrying. What is the point? 3 hours of this nothing burger. Nothing about karma was said. All I could discern was being mean to animals causes it. Isn't that just the tip of the iceberg? Being mean to animals, whoever it was, whether it was the Chinese or non-Muslim Gentiles, about their slaughter methods. We never even got there at all. It was just a pointless regurgitation of repetition after regurgitation after repetition of statistics that that the morons and vegetables couldn't possibly digest. But in the end, David said, I think David was congratulated by Jen for being so calm about it. But really, it seemed to me, I'll admit that I was listening to it at double the speed, because I think I would have died if I was forced to listen to it at normal speed. It is possible that under normal speed, David wouldn't have sounded so agitated. But really, I think just digesting the information would tell you that it was designed to provoke fear and panic, when really what is called for is more a philosophical discussion using deductive reasoning rather than, what do people say, what do the experts say? Don't we already know that they don't know? They don't know until it's all over, and hopefully the deaths will be recorded accurately. But who knows in the panic? So I would say that the most important thing for future reference, in case not all of us survive, is that we record things properly and we go through all the issues calmly. Now, I've just discovered today that President Macron was threatening to close the borders between Britain and France. So, if Boris had not taken more stringent measures to close all the restaurants and bars, and I guess it seems I owe Boris an apology for calling him a coward. Well, obviously, we don't want the food supplies to be threatened by perfidious France threatening Britain. Of course, we will have to consider the French national interest. I mean, obviously, the French are bothered about diseased British people coming over from Britain to infect the French. Now, what I've learned in the past few days about the spread of the disease is that the reason why Italy has so many more than other countries, although by no means can it be established that Italy will be the European country with the most dead from COVID-19. So what I was told, and I have no way of knowing this, well, actually, okay, what I was told, you can judge whether my information is reliable or my logic is sound, was that in Italy they never traced zero and the person zero. Apparently in epidemiology, you trace the first person to get it in your country, and then you can trace who that person has been in contact with, and then you kind of find them, and then you contain the virus. This is the idea of containment, and Italy didn't get round to it, didn't bother, it spread, and that's why there were more deaths in Italy than anywhere else. So this is the thinking behind it, and so the idea seems to be that, well, we have to find out the person zero, the person to have first arrived in the country with the virus. But you think, okay, this kind of makes sense, but really, will you detect every person? I don't think so. I mean, if you don't close your borders, is China out of danger yet? We don't think so. We don't know. We don't know if China is out of danger yet. They're going to go back to school, back to work. in April. So they've taken this measure. The most useful thing, since we don't know, is for different countries to take different measures. And obviously it would be a little awkward for Britain if France threatened our food supply. So we can blame the Frenchies. Are the Frenchies right in taking this measure against Britain? I would say no, because I'm of the view of the herd immunity strategy. So it just means that we all have to take it on the chin, and some of us will have to die. And that was the whole idea anyway. The whole idea of herd immunity would be that 60% of us would have to get it, and then we would have this herd immunity. And, chickening it out at 177 people dying is hardly accepting the logical necessity of adopting the herd immunity strategy. And if people are frightened that they're going to die, then I guess you will have to, talk to them in a calming way, and certainly not in the way that David was talking to us on his stream. I really don't know. I've had, I guess, a mix of views. Some of my friends are very frightened, some of them are exasperated. And my view remains, and I don't mind, you will find a lot of evidence going right to before the bars and restaurants were shut down in the UK, that I supported the herd immunity strategy. And therefore I expect a number of deaths, either significant or insignificant. But so far, the fact remains that 2% is still the mortality rate. So this means 100% out of all the people who catch the virus, only 2% will die. That's fine for me. I mean, what else are we expected to close down entire countries because 2% might die? Are we insane? Are we more likely to die of the insanity of our governments than the virus itself? I mean, why didn't David concentrate on this? He did actually mention it in passing, but the whole thing was just sort of, his whole stream of over 3 hours was just swallowed up in really alarmist, hysterical, apocalyptic scenarios. But we have to accept that he's autistic, and I believe he's part of the unofficial, I don't know, spontaneous Claire boycott now? I don't know. But yeah, I think we're more likely to die of the stupidity of our governments than any old virus. And don't we need to have our numbers thinned anyway? There's so many of us who have no job and no prospect of getting a job, who have nobody to look after us, even if we could survive the virus, whose children don't visit them. I mean, come on, just let it thin our numbers. Isn't that the whole idea? Isn't that what the environmentalists want anyway? They already have this depopulation agenda of making us gay and marry gaily and change our sex and thereby mutilate our sex organs and render ourselves sterile. What's a problem? I mean, the virus is very convenient, isn't it? So what is the problem? We should be just going back to normal life. That is what we should all be doing, including France, including the rest of Europe. With open borders, yeah, everything. If that's what they want in the rest of the EU. I mean, really, what is the problem? Okay, and the annoying thing was nothing was spoken about karma, apart from the karma of being mean to animals. Just very disappointing, very disorganized, but I think we know that they're both a bit autistic. Or maybe they really didn't have that much to say anyway. I mean, it's annoying because I have such a lot to say, and it's nothing to do with analysing statistics and anticipating the probable number of deaths. I'm basically saying, even if most of us are going to die, we'll just have to accept it, because the virus can't be contained. And if we're going to die, we might as well do it calmly, instead of this crazy, stupid, panicked behaviour making people spend their last days, hours, weeks, months of life queuing in supermarkets. I guess the joke's on us, right? The joke is on us. And if the virus is not going to kill that many of us, we will have just really shot ourselves in the head before we needed to. And of course, Duvet didn't really even talk about the possible reasons that a Jew might think would be the cause of God's wrath. Possibly, I mean, I'm not even clear if Duvet believes in God. He's talking just like an atheist with his panic. I thought it was pretty disgraceful. But anyway, I posted a whole bunch of comments. You're all very welcome to go there. I'm not here for the subscribers. I'm very happy to send viewers to other people's channels, while I have, just 3 people watching me. But at least I will be talking about things I want to talk about, forming conclusions, interacting with a chat, rather than doing this, hey, look at me, I'm really worried. Hey, look at me watching Tucker Carlson. Hey, look at me watching the news. Oh, I'm so worried. This is so stream of consciousness. Do people want this shit? Do they really? I mean, it would be nice to have a philosophical discussion with somebody, but I guess people are too panicked too panicked to be able to discuss anything rationally. It's all disjointed sentences and crazy accusations of all kinds of ridiculous things. So instead of being a little bit more sensible now that our mortality is starker, we get an intensification of previous behaviour. So, what is to be done? What is to be done with all the stupid, frightened people, frightened of death, as if it was all a terrible shock that they never expected to die, and they was complaining so much about their miserable, pathetic lives anyway. So, what's a problem? What's a problem, people? Hello, Jen. Well, I must say, in that very long stream, I really, really wanted to hear you speak about karma, and David just talked all over you. Maybe you didn't have anything to say anyway, so maybe I'm just disappointed for nothing, But here, I'll send you a link in case you feel like coming on to tell me what you might have said if you'd been given the chance. Or maybe you had nothing to say anyway. And the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, Jen, was this really pointless discussion between JF and Stefan Molyneux. And it's... Okay, I wasted, quite a few hours of my life too, and it may be coming to an end. But really, it was just such a stupid debate. It actually infuriated me. Jen wants me to submit to her. Well, I'm sending you a link. Is that submission? I certainly submit to circumstances. And perhaps my emotions and my inclinations. My computer's slow. Why don't you just unblock me on Hangouts, darling? Then it wouldn't be such a multi-stage process. Unblock me now, Jen. What excellent points did you make about Stefan's philosophy? I did actually go through it. I actually cut and pasted the transcript and, even edited it generously. The point is, no, it didn't make sense to anyone. And also, the problem really is not moral nihilism versus universally preferable behaviour. It's like they don't even know the basics of a debate. You don't say, my idea is better than yours. Oh, no, it isn't. Yes, it is. No, it isn't. Come on. Come on. White Western men. You don't even know what constitutes a debate and the elements of it. You don't do that. You have a proposition. You have a proposition saying, well, let's be topical here. We should adopt the herd immunity strategy because... And then we can have a debate about it. Not, because if you, the way you frame a statement will of course have a knock-on effect on how you deal with the ideas contained in it. Quite a lot of people ask themselves the wrong question, and that's why everything goes wrong. No, actually, I did punctuate it afterwards. I might have put it on, all unpunctuated, Jen, but I did go back and punctuate it, and actually I left out quite a few sentences to make it make sense. So, yeah, it was kind of a work in progress when you saw it, probably. Is there anyone else in the chat whose questions I can address? No, Zero. You're a bore. You're a bore, and that's why I kicked you. I don't want to hear any conspiracy theory. I don't want to tease it out of you. I don't want you to stand there being autistic. I'm actually sick of people like that. That's who I ever deal with. And obviously this is a kind of feature of the alt-right, that you're obviously suffering from something or other. I have found solutions, Jen. You guys just don't like it. That's why you are boycotting me. So, and really, if you were being rational and honourable, you would be debating me. But you, Jen, are doing what you're doing because, well, we know what you're trying to do. And that really boils down to disgusting, dishonourable behaviour, denial, the desire to avoid the truth, suppressing the truth. You're all like that. And that's why everything is going wrong for you. You're not only children, you're bad children. Stuck with your bad parents, who never wanted you in the first place, and who don't know what to do with you. Well, for some reason my thing isn't opening. Oh, it's taking a while. So what was Stefan saying? Well, the thing is, he was just saying, my idea is better than yours. And nobody was any the wiser. Obviously, Stefan's fan said he won the debate, and JF's fans said he won the debate, but it doesn't matter with, so many NPCs whose opinions no one values, who can't string together a sentence, who can't formulate a coherent thought. Who cares what these people think? If you don't make sense, then you don't make sense. Nobody's even going to bother with you and say, "Ooh, little girl, little boy, what were you trying to say?" So incoherently, they'll just move on to the next thing. Now, I may have fewer subscribers, but the point is, I have a solution. I have a solution that is already known, because it is already understood, and what's happening now is that you're basically saying we can suppress Claire's ideas by not inviting her on our streams. So there we go. It's such a powerful idea that you have to organise yourselves in order to do the dirty, low-down things you want to do. And all because you know you have no counter-arguments to any of mine. So the coronavirus streams were it's all just a cover for, the usual, xenophobic, anti-Semitic crap that you always do anyway, but just under a different packaging. nothing that much has changed. You're not having any philosophical discussions. It's all hysterical, pointless speculation, and it's like, who would ever go to you guys for medical advice anyway? No one. So it was all a waste of time, David. But then it's all narcissism, isn't it? How many people can I get to look at me when I'm just talking shit, and I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm in a panic, but I want people to join me in my panic. And that's it. You would have thought it was a sin to, or somebody religious like David would think it might possibly not be a good idea to waste people's time when, we could all, in theory, drop dead. But not a bit of it. I guess, really, the thing is, he has no particular conviction about anything, which is why he was still talking about his multiple truth hypothesis, which is really a way of prevaricating and muddying the waters of debate and saying, oh, perhaps nothing should be done, perhaps we should just stick to the status quo. And for people with low standards, that's all they're going to do, because they haven't got the courage to actually say anything new or anything controversial. There seems to be a bit of a delay in the stream. I guess I'll have to close my email after having sent Jen the link. So Jen is saying in the chat, I'll try to read it as generously and coherently as I can. She accuses me of not liking questions with complex answers, so you dismiss everything you can't cope with, which ends up alienating you from 95% of people. Not really. What can't I cope with, and what have I dismissed? This is not specified. Church of Entropy says, whereas I like complex questions, I like finding solutions. What solutions have you found to what complex questions? Which ends up alienating about 5% of the population, but they are the loudest. Who are the members of this 5% of the population? This is not specified. And what solutions have you proposed that you're prepared to debate? Let us see. We know what you've projected I want to do. What do you want to do, Jen? I deal with other people at higher levels. I will be to you what you expect. That doesn't make sense. Everything is basically going awesome for me. In what way? You, however, aren't doing well, she says to me. My parents love me. They just don't get me, but that's okay. Your solution? Say people are going to die, okay, and then buy shirts on discount at an old people's store. Well, I never claimed to be a spring chicken. I'm allowed to buy clothes at Marks and Spencer. Why would I go anywhere else? If I'm past a certain age and don't have to look cool, why would I do anything else? Jen says, "Whoa, Claire, amazing leadership." Am I displaying leadership? I'm stating my view. Am I leading people anywhere? Well, obviously I'd like to lead them to Secular Koranism, but they're not actually going your way either, are they, Jen? They don't even understand your ideas, so they're even less likely to go your way. We know the kind of people who come here, hopeless losers who really don't have a full-time job, who, you know that the kind of people that we're talking about. Why aren't we doing better? Because the people at the top don't want to listen to us. They don't want to listen to me. I don't want to do dirty things. I don't do this because I want to get away with sin in a preordained legal order. I don't even know what you're talking about. Did I say you wanted to do dirty things, Jen? I do this because I want to help people. Yeah, I want to help government govern rationally. Oh well, there are quite a few comments. I'll try to keep up. So zero things. You are counterparts of each other. Are we counterparts of each other? Okay, I would read anything from zero because it makes no sense. Oh, now Jen is accusing Zero of being a counterpart of me. Oh. Okay, so crazy accusations, nothing to do with the arguments. Now, I wonder who I would like to debate with. There's actually no one around. I can see no one's live at the moment in Hangouts. The situation seems to have quietened a lot of people. I think I'm having fewer notifications, and the ones I get are actually lower in quality. The JF and Molyneux one was particularly exasperating because it basically said nothing. It was all wrong. I mean, the question asked was just completely wrong. Morons and vegetables and losers don't care about moral nihilism and universally preferable behaviour. They don't get these abstract ideas. They don't care about them. Alan Bastard. actually said something I can talk to at a political level instead of the nonsense being posted by Jen now. You know the Black Death, Alan? That was pretty global, wasn't it? Increasingly, I find that the religious explanation just makes so much more sense. The religious explanation, of course, is that sin is what provokes all these viruses and the famine, the pestilence, the war, and no doubt the revolution. I should look up this sort of zero thing idea, because I only had it explained to me verbally. Okay, so they're talking about ground zero. Italy has more cases of COVID-19 and more deaths than anywhere outside of China, despite being one of the first countries in Europe to institute a travel ban. What went wrong? So the first coronavirus cases were 2 Chinese tourists. Authorities were sure they had put together the safest protection system in Europe. The following day, Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte immediately declared a state of emergency for 6 months and made Italy the first country to block flights from China. We can reassure all the citizens the situation is under control, he said. We expected cases in Italy too. By March 11th, the country had the second highest number of infections outside China. In a press conference where the number of journalists was limited to prevent the spread of the virus, the head of the Italian Civil Protection, Angelo Borelli, laid out the latest figures. Barely 20 days after the first locally transmitted case, authorities had confirmed 12462 cases, 827 people had died, and 1028 were in intensive care units. With the epidemic now rapidly spreading to other European countries, France, Germany and the UK have recorded sharp rises in cases. Italy's experience is serving as a case study and a warning for other governments about how quickly and decisively they need to act. But how did this happen? Why did Italy have so many deaths so quickly? And most of all, could this have been prevented? Although it's too early to be certain, there is growing consensus among scientists that fatal cases of coronavirus have not, in fact, hit Italy quickly. Scientists we've spoken to, this is from Wired, by the way, believe that the virus circulated unnoticed in the country from at least mid-January, thriving because so many of the infected had no symptoms at all, or only mild symptoms like a cough and a mild temperature. This is consistent with recent research suggesting that the virus can be spread by people who do not yet show any symptoms. At the moment, it looks like the outbreak already started in early January, so it had time to grow to considerable size, says Christian Althaus, a computational epidemiologist at the University of Bern. The initial infected cases can be missed and the virus can spread freely. There could be different reasons why these initial contagions were not spotted, says Nino Cartobellotta, a prominent health researcher and president of the GIMBE Foundation. One, it could be that some suspected pneumonia cases were not tested for coronavirus, he says. For example, reports emerging in Italian media suggest that hospitals in the outbreak area observed unusually high numbers of pneumonia cases 1 month before the outbreak. These have not been confirmed as coronavirus cases yet. Now, when was this published? It was published on 14th of March. 2. It could be that there weren't any severe cases, that they only emerge in a clinically mild way, says Cartobellotta. And 3, it depends on the level of attention that health policies place on finding the coronavirus. The coronavirus resurfaced on 18 February when a 38-year-old man went to the A&E of the hospital in the sleepy northern town of Codogno. He reported high temperature for 2 days, his parents said, but the medical staff did not diagnose him with coronavirus, and after the visit he was allowed to return home. When his symptoms got worse and he returned to hospital, he was confirmed to be the first locally transmitted case in Italy. At this point, Italy still only had 4 imported cases, but this patient could have enabled the virus to spread within the hospital, infecting medical workers and patients with already fragile health. He is recovering, but still in hospital in nearby Pavia. On February 23rd, after more cases and the first 2 deaths were detected, authorities put about 50,000 people in Codogno and 10 other towns under lockdown. More measures were imposed on nearby Milan, Italy's economic engine, including the closure of schools and a 6 p.m. curfew for bars and restaurants. But the alarming thing for other countries is that there doesn't seem to be anything that Italy did particularly wrong. It seems to have been down to chance. There's nothing special about Italy in reference to this virus, other than the fact that its health service reacted very quickly and it was the first Western country to react, says Ilaria Capua, a virologist specializing in zoonotic diseases, infectious diseases spreading from animals to humans, and director of the One Health Center of Excellence at the University of Florida. Others suggest that Italy was the first to detect the coronavirus, but not necessarily the first country where the coronavirus arrived. Stefano Rusconi, an associate professor of infectious diseases at DBIC Luigi Sacco, University of Milan, says that other countries did not do a better job of spotting undetected cases. On the contrary, Italy, or rather Lombardy, carried out a very considerable number of coronavirus tests that allowed it to quickly discover many more cases of infected people. He says it looks unlikely that Italy could have done anything to completely prevent the virus from entering. The only thing we could have done is introducing the current lockdown on 30th January, a decision that was impossible and unthinkable at the time, he says. Even stopping flights from China might have had no influence at all, he says. New provisional research suggests that coronavirus reached Italy from Germany. Oh, how will we ever know? Even after the first measures, Italy's already weak economy took a sharp hit. The tourist industry faced waves of flight and holiday cancellations, while Milan's stock market lost 6.8% between 21st and 25th February, and people took to supermarkets to stock up on food. Faced with a choice between public health and the economy, but with only a few hundred confirmed cases in the country's north, politicians across the spectrum tried to keep their feet in both shoes. Many sought to mitigate the economic downturn, sending mixed messages to the population. Lombardy Governor Attilio Fontana of the far-right League told the regional parliament the coronavirus was just a little more than normal flu on February 25th. The next day, the region relaxed restrictions on bars and restaurants only 3 days after passing them. The leader of the centre-left Democratic Party, Nicola Zingaretti, went to a public aperitivo in Milan, warning the country to be careful but avoid destroying life or spreading panic and to give signs of recovery and rebounding. The mayor of Milan, Giuseppe Sala, also of the PD, the centre-left Democratic Party, launched a campaign called Milan Doesn't Stop, encouraging the Milanese not to be afraid. Meanwhile, the epidemic slowly reached the very politicians making these decisions. Just a few hours after Lombardy eased rules for bars, Fontana confirmed one of his assistants had been infected. He announced he would work in a kind of self-isolation. Days later, on March 7th, Zingaretti announced he had the coronavirus. Authorities took additional measures. On 1st March, when cases numbered 1577, they imposed limited restrictions on social life in northern regions. 3 days later, with 2706 cases, schools and universities were shut nationwide. But some argue these decisions were not enough. Cato Bellotta has been a critic of the decision not to take stricter measures at this time, like extending social restrictions to the whole country or even emulating China's lockdown. Waiting strategies have always favoured the spread of the virus, he says. Roberto Borioni, a virologist at the San Raffaele University hospital in Milan and a prominent medicine communicator, has explained the importance of social distancing measures by arguing that the coronavirus is not a sudden event like a meteor arriving on our head. Rather, he said, it's like being in a car that is going against a wall. Just press the brake and we are safe, but the pedal we must press all together. 60 million Italians. Well, you've already hit the wall, so there's no point. I mean, it's like braking distance when you're driving, isn't it? Depending on how fast you're going, your braking distance needs to be, however, for whatever, and if it's rainy, you need to brake even sooner. So if you've already hit the car in front of you, you're done. So I don't think it's a good analogy. In early March, hospitals in Lombardy began to be overwhelmed. So they should have instituted what I said earlier, obviously, Doctors on the front line began saying they had been hit by a tsunami of patients. Some reported working 25 additional hours per week. Others had worked for over 14 hours a day for 24 days in a row. Some medical workers were infected, making shifts harder and longer and working conditions tougher. They should have just been left, it's like, too bad if you've got it, sorry, self-isolate. Maybe you'll get better, maybe you won't, but the best thing for the country is that you self-isolate, and if you don't get through, well, too bad, because we're full up in the hospital, right? But if the hospitals were not full, you still have to prioritise. It's a pathology that puts pressure on the health service locally, says Francesco Longo, director of the Centre for Research in Health and Social Care Management at the Bocconi University of Milan. A particular hospital might be used to treating 2 or 3 cases of pneumonia per day, then suddenly has to treat 40 per day. Nobody can deal with demand 10 times higher than normal. But what are you supposed to do with pneumonia? Are you supposed to drain the lungs or something? But Longo says that the underfunding of the Italian health service might have made the crisis worse. National health services should work at 80 or 90% of their capacity, leaving the rest to deal with emergencies and peaks of demand, he says. The Italian health service has been working at, let's say, 95% for some time. Ordinary stress was already high when the coronavirus hit. But without full-blown lockdowns, Italians continue to be on the streets every day, picture surface of packed ski resorts, free cultural events, or people enjoying drinks in crowded places. These people must have thought they were on the Titanic and so spent their time drinking and dancing the waltz while the ship sang, says Rusconi. By the time the government decided to put Lombardy, then the whole country then the whole country under partial lockdown is not as strict as China, with industrial production, agriculture and the transport of goods still continuing. On March 8th, that's a very bad sentence, contagions and burden on the health service had grown exponentially. It's like, give up already, you've hit the wall. There's no point talking about applying the brake. Come on, people. Hundreds had died across the country, with the death rate appearing to reach 8% in Lombardy, much higher than the one recorded until now. Okay, so it's 8% in Lombardy, but still the official mortality rate is still 2%, right? Italy's high average age could be a factor in this. That was what I thought was probably the problem. The elderly are more likely to have pre-existing conditions, and almost a quarter, 22.6% of Italy's population is age 65 or higher. Ooh. The highest number, that's why they can't deal with the immigrants walking in. The highest number in the EU and amongst the highest in the world. That's because they gave up their Catholicism, I see. Kapua says there are differences in how the data is gathered and presented in different countries, so comparing deaths could be misleading. I still remember this Professor June Andrews, who said that the silver lining of the coronavirus pandemic is that the bed blockers will be unblocked. So, there are people who kind of saw it coming and, said the logical thing, but then, of course, they were condemned. 2 more paragraphs before this article finishes. On February 27th, Italy took the decision to only test people with symptoms, meaning that the official data only detects a fraction of the infected. Since then, we are only observing the tip of the iceberg, says Cato Bellotta. In other words, if we could know all the positive cases, the lethality rate would decrease. Not sure I understand that. This means the spread is likely to be much larger than it appears, and that Italy does not currently have 15113 cases, but probably many thousands more. The same could be happening in other European countries, which seems to be following Italy's curve of contagions. They will have a similar number of cases. Carter Bellotta says, we think there might be an explosion within a week. And this was dated 14th of March, I think I said, wasn't it? Okay, so there's a pattern here. Yeah, so I guess we'll need to get all the funeral directors at the ready, and the mortuaries, and the disposal for these. I guess it would be cremation, would it? Did I read it too quickly, people? I mean, I read it slowly enough for me to understand it. So, so expect things to, so really a lot of us who actually have it might not even know, and will go around. This doesn't invalidate what I said, which is that we will have to take it on the chin, all right? It's too late now. It's too late to even talk about applying the brakes. So we should go for the herd immunity strategy, right? Do you want me to read that to you? Is that soothing? Is that comforting? Or do you all want to go shopping again? Alan Bastard, always going on about open borders. Did they have open borders in the 1300s? Yeah, I guess, people didn't have passports. Okay, actually, when was a passport invented? Oh, apparently Henry V is credited with having invented the thing. Oh, it goes back even earlier. One of the earliest known references to paperwork that served in a role similar to that of the passport is found in Hebrew Bible, Nehemiah 2, book chapter 2, verses 7 to 9, dating from approximately 450 BC. States that Nehemiah, an official serving king Artaxerxes, or the first of Persia, asked permission to travel to Judea. The king granted leave and gave him a letter to the governors beyond the river requesting safe passage for him as he travelled through their lands. So I guess you just get treated better if you have a passport and treated like crap if you don't. You know, I guess people who felt they needed to go wherever would, you know, just go anyway, because they wouldn't have time to apply for a passport. So there were just letters from the king. Okay, I don't need to read that to you. So yeah, I mean, I guess in the olden days, people who wanted to go from A to B would just go. Well, the point is that you know, it's an inevitability. You either think that all this could have been prevented, or that we, you know, live in the best of all possible worlds where all that has happened was intended to happen. Now, I think that is probably the most constructive position to take, or the most calming. It is a religious narrative, of course. It's I guess a Jewish one, really, and possibly even a Christian one. I mean, I think the first time I heard this phrase being used was these things are sent to try us. So I guess, you know, we're being tried. We're being tried for what? For our I suppose if there is a heaven, our fitness to enter it. Have I told you about the attitude Muslim scholars would take towards the Black Death? So there would be, you know, two people who've got the disease and they're going to die, and what the Islamic scholar would say about it would be that if you've been a good man, a believing, godly man, then you have to regard the Black Death as God's way of hurrying you to heaven, and if you've been an evil man, then you'll have to regard it as punishment. So it's very simple. So have you all been good boys and girls? I mean, how many of you are really afraid? So, Alan Bastard blames everything on mass immigration, and I'm saying, well, the fact that you suffer from mass immigration, uncontrolled immigration, is a consequence of your political system failing, and the reason for your political system failing is that your religion is kaput. So we kind of go back to God on that matter, because there will be some of you who say, I don't care that Christianity is kaput, and there will be others who deny that it is kaput, and there will be others, such as me, who say that, yeah, it is kaput and it does need replacing, and it needs replacing with, and you know what I'm going to say. So I will remain eloquently silent. So Jen says believing in an afterlife is kindergarten tier, but she does believe in an afterlife because she believes she will be reincarnated. So what's the difference? What makes you think you're better than us? You also believe in an afterlife. Reincarnation is a form of afterlife. It's also a form of reward and punishment for this life. So what makes you so special? What makes you different from us? It's a shame you won't join me, Jan. We could have a really good conversation, but you're afraid of me, and you think, why are you afraid of little old me when you have demon, coronavirus, COVID looming over you? Why are you afraid of little old me? Makes no sense. I think before we die, we should try to make more sense. Don't you think? But yeah, it was interesting that I thought Jen was much calmer. Than Duvet. And Duvet's a religious one. I've got a message. I've got a message asking me who's responsible. As far as I know, that nobody has declared a boycott of me. I kind of feel that, of course, it's part and parcel of, Jen hiding me in the chat and week in review and not letting me come on. But that's been going on for quite a few months now. Well, the thing is, I actually think I have... Oh yeah, and Duvet has unfriended me, so that's another, show of unfriendly behaviour. So, I don't know. I mean, nothing directly has been said. I made a few polite inquiries about Gandalf's state of health. I know he's read my messages, but he declined to respond, so... I don't know. Well, Jen, bless her heart, has actually been with me in a stream about, within the past week. So, and of course, it's not her fault that the stream can't quite process. I don't know what's wrong with it. But anyway, she's been on. It was like old times again. I suppose what I'm really complaining about is that, that there are a whole bunch of people I'd actually like to talk to, and that they're kind of making it clear that they're not interested in talking about new ideas, just, retreading the same old tired positions, not really able to find anything new. Stefan Molyneux, I've crossed swords with him. I've been on his show twice, and he won't let me on again. I know he doesn't like Muslims. I'm not, and he must think I'm one, or he doesn't want to argue with me. He just wants to argue with idiots like JF, who, won't even accept his axioms. So, it's just stupid, and it in a way is indicative of how hopeless Western man is. And Jen, for, well-known reasons, just won't be in a hangout with me on her own anyway. She can't express herself clearly, but she doesn't really want to. It's enough that she gets to say whatever she wants to say to you on a stream, and then forget about it and think, oh, well, I've got more viewers than Claire. It doesn't matter if I wasted everybody's time. But actually, I kind of want to, push it forward. But that's a problem of having moral degenerates. It's like, nobody's actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. If they claim to be following principles, they won't actually follow it. If they claim to be, doing a job, they won't be doing it. So nothing really is fit for purpose. The media isn't fit for purpose. It's supposed to be reporting news, reporting human interest stories, analysing, the news, but it doesn't really. It's just about propaganda. The government is supposed to be governing in the national interest. That was why I wanted nationalism defined as government in the national interest. And but of course I get these low status, low education, low information people saying nationalism is anti-Semitism and Islamophobia and racism. So they will forever tar the name of nationalism with their bigotry and small-mindedness, and nobody will tell them off. So the people marginally smarter than they are, people like Luke, or people with a degree, I suppose, will just pander to the the hatred of these people. They won't challenge them, and other people looking at what's going on below will disdain to join such a movement. I'm not like that, of course, but I've been shown, I've been tarred with that brush, and of course they can easily ignore me because, well, they can. That's it. It's not ignoring me. It's not just a tactic adopted by the liberal media. It's a kind of tactic that would be adopted by people who know they can't win the argument against me, and they don't want to go through with it, and so they can just say, I'm mad or whatever. I did expect it, so I'm not too bothered. But that is a problem. That if everything were working perfectly, what my message would get the publicity it deserved, because the people above would want to challenge my ideas, would actually want to debate with me. But since I know they can't win it, they're just going to ignore me until I die of the coronavirus, that sort of thing. So all very dishonourable motives that Jen is obviously party to. Jen calls me a crank. If I'm a crank, what are you, Jen? At least I can explain my ideas, and people do already know what it is. I think I'm a victim of my own success. Randall McMurphy, you're a new person. Well, welcome. Says, Church of Entropy is afraid of you, Claire, and your cunning. And Church of Entropy says, "Lol, yes, I'm terrified of wasting my time talking to a crank so she can post shit about me in the live chat." Randall McMurphy continues, "Deep down, she knows she's inferior to you." Church of Entropy responds, "Yes, I'm a slave. I owe everyone in an audience, even if they interrupt, endlessly libel me on their blog and stream endlessly about me. That makes sense. That makes so much sense." And Randall McMurphy says, "And here you are in her chat." Church of Entropy says, "Yes, you too." Randall McMurphy says, "Not talking about me." Church of Entropy says, "Well, getting people to talk about you, that's a complex science, you know."
Hey, I'm here. What do you want to say to me exactly?
Hello.
Yeah, you fucking nut job. Why don't you go buy some more shirts to make yourself feel better?
I've got enough shirts, thank you.
Oh, yeah, you sure you don't need a couple more shirts?
Nah. Tops. Perhaps I'll show them to you sometime. So how have you been? How's it like what's it like where you are?
Same old, same old.
So,
I live a, quite simple life.
Yeah, so do I. I came across this thing about somebody said, "Oh, quarantine. I had no idea that my lifestyle before all this was quarantine."
Well, yeah. I'm just making the best of it,
In
Like I
what
do with
way? In what
everything else.
way?
Well, one of the things I've enjoyed doing is recording, yoga whores having meltdowns so
That
that I
was
can
funny.
later.
I really enjoyed that, Jen. But I kind of
Well,
wanted to watch the last one
want to
with the squatting one.
yeah, you want to prove some points, but hard to prove them because people are thick imbeciles who can't think with imagination. So you have to demonstrate certain points. They become harder to deny once they're demonstrated. So it's a wonderful opportunity for that.
What point are you referring to with regard to the yoga slots?
Well, should they be calling themselves yoga teachers, or is that a hugely offensive thing that should be opposed?
What,
Because I would go with the latter.
well, what should they be calling themselves then?
I don't care. Not yogi, that's for sure.
I was thought
That's
yogi was some Indian man
well,
meditating
the point is that
naked.
yoga. The point is that what they do is not yoga. Okay, that's the point.
What about, okay, what is the distinction between what they do and what you do?
Seriously, you
Well,
can't tell.
I need it in words. I mean, because
You
as far
can't
as I
tell
know,
the difference.
you're a yoga instructor too.
You can't tell the difference between solving physics and philosophy problems and political problems and religious problems. You can't tell the difference between that and walking around in spandex sweatpants pretending to be a yogi.
Well, obviously that's a difference in occupation, but I was thinking of you and the kind of yoga you do, and I think, well, they're yoga instructors and you're a yoga instructor. Obviously I wasn't even thinking of your, your theocracy thing.
Well, that's actually what yoga is, though. Or not quite. I mean, it's like the closest thing you're going to get in the West to knowing what it is. So, given that that's as close as you guys can get to what it is, do you understand how it's kind of insulting that yoga whores are a thing?
Well, people don't really. Okay, yoga is
I know they don't
something
know. I get it.
that's
They don't know. I
relaxing
get it.
and that's
I
it.
get it. I get it. They don't know. I get it. That's a problem. That's the point. And the way to get them to comply with reasonable behavior is to shame them into compliance, i.e., make funny clip videos about them. So people will act, more foolishly under a situation of chaos. So I get more material to prove the point. See, like, I already know what point. I already know what degeneracy I'm looking at. You know, I had you pegged 5 minutes after I met you. 5. I knew exactly the core elements of your character.
What were they? What did you think they were?
I think I've done a pretty good job of exposing you, Claire.
Well, I mean, for the benefit of new people, maybe they kind of
Yeah, for
need
the
a...
benefit of new people, they can learn the lesson that don't come on this stream to instruct. Come on this stream to strut.
Yeah, but were you gonna...
No, you've not. You've made it impossible for me to give enough of a shit about you to bother actually putting thoughts together coherently for you due to your shenanigans, right? So this is the punishment: is you don't get the careful explanations because you don't respect them.
Well, I respect them by remembering them.
You've remembered nothing of any of my theories, except possibly the gravity, moon, water thing, which I suspect
I remember the quantum thing, I think, about
No,
waves.
you don't remember anything of that. You know as much about quantum as Molyneux does. You know what he said? He said morality has nothing to do with quantum. I'll take statements that won't age well for $500.
Well, he's basically... Who did you think won the debate? I'm so glad you mentioned the...
JF won, in my view, but it was a narrow victory. I mean, it always depends how you're judging the debate, right? If we're going to go based on who was more correct, JF. Who did a better job on rhetoric? I mean, Molly memes by a tiny margin, but JF still wins because he was the one with the right position.
Okay.
And that counts for something, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, it would be really helpful if we could kind of sum up each other's, I mean, their position. Would you like to do that? Sum up Molyneux's position and JF's position, and maybe tell us.
I'd like to hear you try to plod through that, because I don't think you can.
Okay, I'll try. I thought I did at the beginning anyway, but obviously I need to go in more detail. So JF was saying that there are no moral absolutes. It's just a preference that we have not to be killed, not to be stolen from, not to have sexual offences committed against us. And we might do people who are moral nihilists might go on to do all these things to other people if they thought they could get away with it, if they thought it was necessary.
You've got to explain Stefan's position. You're talking about Stefan is not.
Well, no, I'm talking about JF's first, and I can go on to talk about Stefan's.
Oh, you said Stefan. Okay, so you're talking about JF's position. Okay, moral nihilism.
Yeah, that was what I was doing. Okay, I started with him, and he said people might say they prefer this and that, but ultimately might is right, and it doesn't matter what you might think is right. The person with more power will always triumph over you, and therefore you are to acquire power to not be triumphed over by these people above you. So that is his view, and Stefan basically said, you know, when he was talking, I said, I think you mean the seven Noahide laws, minus the blasphemy, sodomy, idolatry thing. So, but it's quite easy to understand that, obviously, if you went around murdering people, you might end up getting murdered. If you went around screwing other people's spouses, they might, do something to you and your spouse, or hurt you in some way because you've broken up their, and if you steal other people's stuff, they'll do that the same to you. And so that would be the principle of reciprocity. You don't hurt me and I don't hurt you, and then we go back to the golden or silver rule. The golden rule is do unto others as you wish them
Are these actually Molly Meme's positions, or are you just remembering random facts from random shit that you read? Because this does not sound familiar at all.
Well, he was talking about universally preferable behaviour, and this is what is supported by do unto others, the golden and silver rule. So basically,
when the hell did Molyneux ever say this?
what does universally preferable behaviour mean, other than rules that we can all agree on?
It basically means that there is such a thing as universal morality, and it consists of a list of ahimsa principles, which means that they're forbiddances of bad actions. Okay, so forbiddance of bad actions and creating good actions, those are not the same, okay?
What do you mean creating good actions?
Creating good actions is like developing math, okay? I don't follow a set of rules and then develop math. No, math gives me the fucking rules, okay? So that's virtue, okay? Virtue.
You have knowledge of maths.
The point is that forbiddances of bad stuff and manufacturing of good stuff, not the same thing, okay?
Can you give us an example of one and the other so we know what you're talking about?
I just did. One of them is rape bad, okay? That's forbiddance of a bad thing, okay? I'm going to take this down to kindergarten level for you. Manufacturing of virtue, different, because you're talking about, like, think about it. How do you come up with a mathematical system? Not very easy, is it? How do you come up with science theory? Not very easy, is it? You can't look into a list of forbiddances to get an answer for math, because that requires some other type of thinking than just rape is bad, okay?
I'm afraid I don't understand.
You don't understand that forbidding bad stuff and enabling good stuff it's not the same mechanism. Even though I said that you're basically saying you can't tell the difference between banning murder and coming up with math theories.
No, they're entirely different things. It's like, people with ideas.
The point is that they're different, okay? And the point is, one, they're different, and two, you need both for the state to work correctly.
Well,
okay.
Okay, so you maintain levels of education.
We have not actually gotten to my point yet. We're trying to say, what is Molly Meme's position, okay? So you understand he started out as an anarcho-capitalist, yes?
Okay, I thought he was libertarian, but same kind of thing, I guess. Same area.
Well, they're basically indistinguishable. It's just that libertarians place a slightly more of an emphasis on gun rights, and ANCAP's slightly more of an emphasis on market rights. But they both ultimately are incomplete systems of reasoning. I'm sure you agree for different reasons from me as to why they're incomplete. But basically, Molly Meme's position is there is such a thing as universal morality. Universal morality should be enforced by the state, I think. And when there's disputes over property rights, they're mediated by something called the Dispute Resolution Organization. Okay?
Okay.
So the idea is you have a society where anybody can do anything except these, like, rape, take your, like, the list that he has of non-universally preferable behaviors. Those are banned, presumably under threat of death, although I actually have no idea how he plans to enforce these laws. He may just want to throw people in prison. Like, I don't really actually study this guy's position, but whatever it is, it's one of them. Yeah, so that's basically it. And then anything more complicated than just the basic forbiddances goes to a dispute resolution organization. So it's basically like Kurt Doolittle's idea.
Okay, I did actually go over to his page, his video, and I posted a few suggestions, and I just noticed that.
Not listening. We're still trying to establish who won the debate. It's
Yeah,
very
yeah, and
annoying.
I'm saying it's impossible because, people who like JF will say
So you're
JF
saying
one.
let's discuss something that's impossible to understand. I can understand it. It's not that hard. It's just you have to actually understand how it's supposed to work. Then you can argue against it, but you're not even willing to understand what his fucking position is.
Well, we've just established that
Okay,
Molyneux
what's
believes
Molyneux's
that there are
position?
universal rules that should be enforced. We've just
What's Molyneux's position?
that there are universal laws and they should be enforced, right? That's what he was saying.
Plus the dispute resolution, like you
Well, of
gotta
course, it has to be enforced in what some way, and he's
John, shut up! Don't you understand that the property rights disputes are going to be very complicated, and that dispute resolution organizations have to have some way of knowing how to resolve these property rights
yeah. We'll just
problems?
assume that they know how to do it.
That's pretty lazy, isn't it?
Well,
How can
we
you
already
assume
have courts of law.
that don't impose justice, genius?
Okay, so obviously people are not happy, but I mean, the theory is that it's supposed to administer and enforce the law. So what you have,
What this thing is supposed to do is enforce justice, okay? Justice. That's not the same thing as
let's hope that the law is
laws.
justice.
Laws. You're always just trying to rope this back to your stupid fucking quote unquote holy law book.
I haven't
I
even
can see right
mentioned it.
through you. Like, I can
I don't even
tell,
know
I
what
can
we're arguing about. I thought we already
you're
agreed.
not actually able. You cannot think in a way that's required to actually analyze things.
I'm giving you all the time you need to make your point.
The point is that you have no imagination, no capacity to actually debate in any reference frame but your own. I'm not saying who's right or wrong. I'm trying to explain the fucking positions and why I think JF won.
Please carry
And
on.
you're like, what, the laws? It's like, who cares? There's obviously laws are a thing. I get it. Laws are a thing. Okay. Not denying that laws are a thing. Okay. Obviously, there have to be laws or else there's no order. The point is that Molyneux is making an affirmative statement. Okay. He's saying that UPB exists and that it's optimal statecraft, even though there's very obvious problems that he won't address about his system. And it's on the same scale as Kurt Doolittle. It's like, well, someone will figure it out. Someone will know how to impose justice. Not me, but someone will. So it's always a matter of time before, if I went and actually talked to Molyneux, I could just construct increasingly more difficult property rights conflicts that he would eventually not be able to resolve himself. And then I would say, well, who are you going to make resolve that issue? And he's not going to have an answer because he has no way of ranking people's knowledge of justice, because it never occurred to him that he needs to do more in his statecraft than just ban rape because it's bad. Okay. You have to actually give a mechanism for people to increase their knowledge.
Of
that
what? Of rape?
When these complicated property rights issues arise, you have to know how to give a solution to them that people are actually satisfied with.
Well, let's assume that our courts of law are able to resolve property disputes. We do live in an advanced society after all.
So you're white knighting for the modern system, okay? So then
No,
you have no
I
problem.
don't know what. Okay, I don't know what your problem is. I mean, as far as we know, Molyneux believes
I don't know
that
what my problem is. My problem is he's wallpapering over the question of how does one impose justice.
police, courts.
Yeah, that's not an answer. Okay.
What kind of answer do you
I have a
have?
question for policeman. I'd like to know, how many trees I can plant in my field so it'll be good for the environment. The policeman's not going to know the answer to that question. But the answer to that question is important because living within the confines of what nature allows is important. Otherwise, you get things like bat virus because of filthy people who don't keep animals well at all. It's almost like they want to cause them suffering, isn't it?
Or that they're indifferent. But I mean, the no-hide
Do
laws
they
also
want to suffer
mention
themselves?
animal
Don't they
rights.
realize, don't they understand that causing things to suffer means that eventually suffering will be brought upon you?
Clearly.
So they want to suffer then.
Well, people, I've said many a time that criminals commit their crimes expecting to get away with it. So,
Spacepan's in the chat. He's white knighting for Molly memes. What's going on, Spacepan? Nice to see you, man.
oh, good, good, good. We can have him on too. Spaceman, why
Yeah,
don't...
I love how Woodrow is already commenting on justice, which I'm certain is some sort of fucking bullshit word salad. The fact is, it's a very abstract concept. What is justice, right? You need axioms to answer that question, which brings us back to the need to agree, at the very least, on axioms before you can even start to talk about anything constructive. You have to agree on axioms. So I don't even need to read your comment, Alex. I know it's nonsense. I know it's worthless, okay? Following its rules. Whose rules, Alex? That's the whole point. I agree. It's about rules to some extent because it's like nature has rules, right? Nature has rules, but then there's this gray area where we can have different results. You know, you can make your room a mess, or you can make it really clean, and you can make society a fucking mess, or you can make it really clean. Like, we have a certain range of control, but we're bound by the laws of physics. And so those are the laws we should be looking to never ever think we can violate them. Because if you think you can violate the laws of physics, you're on a path of self-destruction. They're immovable, but they're abstract. You know, most people can't comprehend them, so we sort of just have to leave them the space to learn those lessons, i.e., get them out of each other's way so that they can't hurt each other in the process of acquiring their own self-realization, i.e., don't allow them to propagandize confused laity with filth that makes them think that they have status that they just don't have because they don't have the virtue of knowledge to back it.
So, what I'm trying to say about
Jay's in the chat under an alt called Randall McMurphy.
Who's that? Who's that?
Jay, your stalker. You know, nothing ever fucking changes around here. People, you know, just get nuttier.
I know, it's worse. They just get worse. I thought, you think they might get more civilized or whatever. And you know. Oh,
You
well.
should just send Jay the link. I mean, he's already in the chat.
Yeah, I suppose I could. All right. I'm trying to get Spacepan to accept my invitation to Hangouts, but he's not doing it because then it would make it easier to send him the link should he want it. But mind you, I didn't know that was what I had to do for ages and ages. But the thing about Molyneux and JF is that JF is proposing nothing, so he's taking on a Kant's position. So and so he will just take down anyone's position because he's already said he's a moral nihilist, and he's saying, yeah, you can say these rules work,
So
but
what? That's just how they are.
yeah. So it was a pointless discussion. But what I did suggest to Molyneux in the comment was that the best way of conclusively winning would be to say which of us would you want as your leader, JF or me, and then he'd win.
JF is not going to assume the mantle of leadership. He doesn't want it. If he did, he'd be attempting to construct some type of moral architecture.
Well, of course. So, but that's what we want. We want leadership, don't we? I mean, that's the only way that anything can get done.
He doesn't want to be the leader.
I know,
JF,
because everybody's a moral degenerate, because they think if I'm leader, I'm
no, I
going
think
to be targeted and I'm scared. So I don't
it's
want to be leader.
I think it's a sign of virtue, if he doesn't have a well-developed moral framework. Hey, what's going on, Spacepan? Yeah, if he doesn't have a well-developed moral framework, he shouldn't want to be the leader, because the leader's going to have to answer moral questions. And if you don't like moral questions and having to arbitrate moral questions, you shouldn't be trying to be the leader. Isn't that pretty reasonable? So, I mean, for him to say, yeah, I don't want to be the leader, is actually a prudent position to take.
Yeah, okay, so we'll just ignore him from now on because he has no moral virtue, he has no beliefs.
Why would I ignore him? He says...
Yeah, well, I ignore him. I mean, what has he said that's useful at all?
He's more important than you are. He talks about science and current events, and he has a huge following of smart people.
But what has he actually said but pander to the prejudices of those who hate Jews and Muslims?
His scientific theory isn't the best.
It's irrelevant to politics. He can go and talk about his scientific theories elsewhere. Nobody cares. We're interested in politics.
Do you guys know what I want JF to talk about? I want him to do a cooking show. He actually sometimes goes into like what he likes to cook, and since he's French, he does some interesting things. Like I think that would be. I think he actually proposed that idea. Like, should I do just like a cooking show where I just talk about the news, talk about the alt-right, and also I am cooking. And I'd watch the shit out of that. That'd be great.
I think he might be too autistic for a cooking show. I agree. It would be funny though. It would probably be like unexpected twists and turns of hilarity.
Yeah, just spice things up a little. But I'm actually a little out of the loop. I did my own stream this morning, and then I watched like a feminist horror movie compilation thing, which I thought was going to be really entertaining and like cringy, and it was just like kind of boring and dumb. So that was disappointing. And then I fell asleep, and then I woke up and I see all of this kerfuffle over this JF Molyneux debate, which I haven't gotten to watch yet.
It's not worth watching. It's so stupid.
There was a JF Molyneux debate, and like in the same day, like within hours of each other, there was a Eric Stryker and Destiny debate. And the debate that they had didn't even have a name. It was just like Stryker versus Destiny. There was like no subject at all. At least with JF and Molyneux, they had an actual debate subject, which is Molyneux's UPB, which is basically an attempt to axiomatize the NAP, and JF's moral nihilism. So it was
because if you said that to Molyneux, he would take such huge issue. I remember this was like 4 or 5 years ago, I think. Somebody had called into a show to discuss UPB, and it was somebody who was kind of philosophically minded. I think they were either an undergraduate or doing something with philosophy. And they went in there saying, okay, so with UPB, you have these axioms. And Molyneux was like, excuse me? And he was like, your axioms. And he was like, I don't have axioms. Do you see the word axiom in UPB? And he would like Molyneux was actually quite defensive, quite mean about it. But that's one thing that he like really was careful about avoiding. It might be a semantic issue.
I'm sorry, but it's impossible not to have axioms. It's actually impossible, because if you're going to make a logical argument, you're accepting the axioms of logic.
You mean definitions? When you say axioms, you mean definitions?
No, axioms are not definitions. They are statements which are not able to be falsified within a particular reasoning system. They're not definitions per se.
Right. I mean, you could present a definition axiomatically, I guess, but there is a distinction there. I think the point of departure is that, like with some logical arguments, you kind of throw out an axiom, and the idea is that it's like, if you grant these things, then I can prove everything, right? But what Molyneux is attempting to do is to create a universal system of human ethics, which is not dependent on people having to assume anything, which is to say, like, it's just true. So I think that's what he's trying to. That's his project. I'm not sure though he succeeded though. He kind of succeeded in the way like Ayn Rand did, which is to say they put forth a moral system that is like works for all human beings living on the planet Earth. Which is to say, it may not be
laws already.
Oh, the Noahide laws. That's something I've like kind of bookmarked that I haven't done my research on.
Well,
That's
you
Imagine,
I
just need
told
to
you
know what
I was
they
gonna start
are.
studying the Quran. I have to
imagine a
keep to
really
that.
slow meat grinder where you're forced to profess lies. That's what it is, basically.
No, it's not.
I don't know. I
It's not like that at all. It's motherhood and apple pie as far as I'm concerned. I can tell you what the seven of them
It's a
and
meat grinder.
the
They
first of
define what
them.
idolatry is. They can kill anyone
The
they want.
first of them
It's a meat
is
grinder. They
the
can kill
first
anyone
of
they
them
want.
is the
Idolatry
first of them
and
is the
heresy. They can
first
say,
of
you said
them
something I don't
is.
like, so I'm going to kill you now. That's all it is a completely carte blanche to kill whoever they want. Just admit it, Claire.
Okay, we won't talk about the no-hide laws because Jen's an anti-Semite and she can't bear the thought of
You're just a
talking
fucking
about.
lying
oh
piece of shit.
Claire, come on.
Why can't I tell
Historically
Spacepan about it?
illiterate, and I'm not going to let you get away with
In
this
what way
nonsense.
historically illiterate? What don't
You
I
are
know?
historically illiterate if you think that this is anything other than a pretext for genocide.
So the no-hide laws are a pretext for genocide? Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's the historical pattern, genius.
Really? Can you explain it to us, please?
How about read History of Christians Persecuting Pagans in Europe, and then
But
honestly, we
my
shouldn't even talk
argument
about
my argument
you're
is
a
that
fucking
Christians
lying
aren't
piece of
even
shit who is a
no-hide.
historical illiterate. There's no point in having this conversation. We should just keep it to what the actual conversation
Yeah,
is supposed to be about.
but you're interrupting me. I'm trying to tell Spacepan what the no-hide laws are.
Yeah, I looked
You're
into it
trying to
a little
lie.
bit at one time. I'll put a pin in that and look into it, and then maybe that's something I'm
That we
interested in
can discuss
revisiting.
because I guess Jen's so triggered by the very idea of them that she can't even let me tell you what they are. So maybe we can
I don't
move
really
on to
like
something else.
lying.
But
No,
basically the universal minimum standard of behaviour. That's what they are, and this is kind of what Molyneux was trying to do. But obviously,
no.
the no-hide
Yeah,
laws
I
have
guess
more
I'll look
moral
into it and see
authority
if I
than
see that
Molyneux.
parallel. But have you guys? So universally preferable. I guess Claire, I left you like a very lengthy comment because I was going through the part of your stream where you played clips from Jen, and I was trying to make sense of the argument.
Which stream
So
was this?
I'm still getting myself caught up. This is the one that you had. I think the last one you uploaded
Right.
before you went live again. And so then I'm sitting here like, oh wow. So I'm like 3 or 4 streams behind. I take one nap and I'm like 4 streams behind everything.
Huh.
Does Spaceman have Mr.
Oh,
Potato
so
Head
you've been
glasses?
quite
No,
busy.
I bought these glasses in China. They used to have black on them, and then the black started to fall off. So then I scraped it all off. So now they're just yellow. But anyway, but UBB, the cool thing about it
Probably
is
know more about
Molyneux.
it than I do, honestly.
Yeah, well, Molyneux's kind of my shit. I mean, I've been listening to him for over 10 years. So
Isn't the
I've followed it all.
isn't
like
the non-aggression principle the axiom?
you could say that, but the argument in a lot of libertarian circles is that well, there's multiple different ways to approach it. One way that's popular, although a number of libertarians contest this and hate this approach. I like it, but there's argumentation ethics, which in a nutshell is taking a person's actions or their words, and then you derive premises from those words, and then you construct an argument that says there's literally no way for you to refute this without contradicting yourself. Therefore, you're wrong. Therefore, I'm right. It's not like as logically airtight, but in terms of presenting something that's like out of the box, usable, that maps onto it creates like a usable moral system, or I should say, an ethical system. It does that really well, and it's an interesting approach. Like, so the example would be, if you're like a trivial example is if I'm stealing from you, I'm asserting my own right to own property, but I'm denying yours. And that's a contradiction. So we can say that theft isn't something that's universalizable for all humans. And this is essentially the way that you construct things. Or you say, like, imagine a moral system where you say like rape is good. And it's not universalizable because like two people can't simultaneously rape each other, right? So you use these like logical constructions to get to these basic moral
He wasn't
truths.
saying rape is good. It was, basically what it boiled down to was saying it's impossible to rape somebody who says rape me. That
Right,
was
well,
what
yeah,
I'm saying,
exactly.
but
Yeah, so-
because you know,
I'm sorry, but all that's saying is that some words have a negative context. That's not a moral framework. That's just
no, I'm
isn't that
trying to explain the basis of his argument, or you know, if he even formulated it at all, and I'm saying, well, he didn't. You know, the debate was so bad that nothing clearly was stated, and really they needed a moderator, and more than needing a moderator, they needed a proposition, and they didn't even think to have that because people are so removed from the traditions of debate that they never even thought, like, why don't we debate about whether we should or shouldn't do something rather than my idea is better than yours. Yeah.
Right, like you need to have a proper resolution if you want to have like a more structured debate. And I have noticed in a lot of Molyneux debates, often they don't necessarily get to that point. It's not necessarily Molyneux's fault in each case, but
He
like for
doesn't know
example, I
the
think with his
rules. He
Bausch
doesn't know
debate,
the
there's a
rules
lot
of
of meandering.
he doesn't know the rules of debate. He probably doesn't even know that they exist. Because if he did know about them, he participated in them. If he went to a halfway decent school where they had such things in the sixth form, he would know that. But I don't think even the sixth forms they do that now, because
I mean,
Claire,
maybe.
Claire, why don't you want to have formal debates with me after you got destroyed in the God debate we had, though?
I didn't get destroyed. You see, we can do it again, but
Ooh, I can moderate. Maybe I can try and
no,
moderate.
no. There's no need for you to
She's
moderate.
not going to do it. She's not going to do it
Well, then,
because
then I
No,
can
no.
just
I'm
sit
saying
back and
there's
feel
no
my ass,
need.
bro. It'll
I've
be great.
transcribed.
And then you're
She's
gonna
gonna
say
try
it's
to
moderated.
Watch,
No.
she's going to try to weasel her way out of it. She's going to, I don't have to debate Jen because we can just have a
No,
conversation.
I'm not even saying that. I'm saying, I've transcribed what you said. I've transcribed what I said. I've transcribed the whole debate. And all we have to do is go through them and count the number of sound arguments that Jen made and I did. And whoever has more, the more sound
No,
arguments wins. So that's how it's done.
You don't acknowledge my arguments, even though they're correct.
No,
So
no,
that
it's
does
not for me to acknowledge them. Obviously, I refute them or I disagree with them, but it's for somebody else. But the thing is, nobody even cared. Nobody even cared. So you really have to kind of drag them into a room and keep them there and make them go through every sentence and ask them, is that a valid argument or a sound argument? Is that an argument at all? And they won't do that, so it'll never happen. So there's no point because they don't care. They don't care about a personal or impersonal God because they don't even believe in God. So there's no point asking them.
That's
So
a waste of
what
time.
we should do is whether we
No,
should do something
valid
or
sound
not.
argument is a waste of time. You should only care about whether an argument is correct. You shouldn't care. It doesn't matter. Like, what does it matter? Why do we need to know about logically consistent arguments if they're not objectively correct?
Of course they're objectively correct. That's the whole point of talking about sound arguments.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You don't need to worry about.
Yeah, but if the question is stupid, unfalsifiable.
Why don't you shut up for a second? So the point is that Claire doesn't actually understand how to analyze logic, so she always tries to drag things back to sound versus valid arguments, which is actually a worthless point because the argument.
In what way don't I understand logic?
You have never once been able to go into any type of logical analysis in all the time that I've known you.
Well,
you
give me an example. Give us all an
valid
example.
And sound arguments. Valid and sound arguments. Valid and sound arguments.
When did I ever lose an argument to you?
That's not important, though. The point is that if an argument is logically correct, but it's not objectively true, it's irrelevant. Therefore, it shouldn't be considered. Yet you always try to bring it back to this false dichotomy because
I'm just saying you're so far removed from the whole idea of a logical argument that you don't even know the definition of it.
You have no capacity to judge whether an argument is logical or not, and you're always trying to cover up for that fact. Can
you give an example of? Well, why don't you explain how you won the argument and what the argument was about? No, it has no relevance to politics.
You're asking me for
I really think Spacepan is here and he doesn't really want to listen.
Shut up. Shut up
for a second. Shut up, Jen. You shut up.
Here's an example of why you suck at logic. I've never once heard you make a fucking ever ever analyze any logical statement ever. And you always try to drag it back to valid versus sound arguments, which, as I've just demonstrated, is a completely worthless distinction.
You haven't demonstrated anything.
You haven't
Why
demonstrated
didn't you
that
ask
it's
Spacepan? Why didn't
why?
you? Why didn't you
Why
explain?
is it worth?
Why didn't you
It's-
explain? Why didn't you explain to Spacepan how
I have
you
a
won the
question,
argument?
I have a question, Claire. If an argument is logically if an argument is logically consistent but it's not objectively true, what's its relevance?
You're
It has none. That's the point.
But I wasn't
So-
saying that.
I want to mention, so it is true that often you can create these like logical constructions, and like some of the premises might not be true, or whatever the case might be, right? Or especially if it's in the case of like a hypothetical. But if an argument's not logically sound or valid, that could just be like that's probably grounds for it being not true. Like it's just one of many ways that you can demonstrate something doesn't necessarily hold. So it's kind of both. But the thing is like discussions of logic itself, they tend to be counterproductive just because it's so natural and intuitive. Like people, you know it when you see it, even if you can't explicate precisely what the logical fallacy is. They just don't pass the smell test. And I think people, they poo-poo informal debate a lot, but like I think the reason that with like JF and Molyneux he doesn't do like a structured formal debate is because so few people would be able to actually follow it. He's trying to kind of take things down a level of abstraction and give it to people in a way that they can actually use and digest and apply to their life. And like if you watch like a formal debate, like a formal like policy debate, even at like the high school level, it's like insane. The arguments they make are absolutely freaking bananas. They talk super fast and they use so much lingo to package up so many things that it's extremely difficult to follow. And it's this incredibly insular world, and it's like totally just like separate from the way reality works. And even like Lincoln Douglas debate, which is the form I have the most experience with, like even that, like it was conceived in order to be a style of debate that was more based on like broader like philosophical concepts, and to be something that was a little bit like less really detail and fact intensive and more of a general. Yeah, Lincoln-Douglas or LD.
Yeah,
and actually it's a kind of debate, like if you two are going to do a formal debate, that would be a forum you guys actually might find very interesting, because you have a resolution, so we can figure out what precisely it is that's to be debated, which is probably the most difficult challenge, and choosing that's probably the most important part of it. And then when you're making your case, whether you're affirming or negating it, you're traditionally your case includes a value. So you're saying this is the thing that's the most important, and then you present a criterion, which is a standard for achieving that value, or for kind of weighing how it is. Different factors go into that, and then you have a series of contentions, which kind of link everything through the resolution, and that's where you kind of have the meatier stuff, like all of your actual evidence that supports everything. So there's this really cool thing that you're setting up where you're kind of laying the value proposition at the kind of the front end of it. But then there's also like really insane like advanced stuff people do where they present critiques, which are to be blunt, pretentious and completely freaking stupid. And it'll be shit where like somebody will argue, we have to negate the resolution on principle because I'm a person of color, and in order to combat oppression in this white-dominated sphere of debate, you should award me the ballot because of this, this, and this. And they'll do like an Afro-pessimist critique of it, and like won't even like make the debate. Like they'll literally argue, because racism, you have to give me the vote because I'm Black, like unironically. And it's like taken seriously, and like that's how awful debate has evolved over the last like 5 to 10 years.
Spacepan, can I suggest a new way of doing it? And I think it will be really quick, and everybody gets time to think, and everybody can follow it, because and if they don't understand, they can ask questions, and then we just and then after a certain time we say, have you said all you want to say about this? And then both agree that it's ended, and then there probably won't be that many people can go through it and say, yeah, I think Spacepan won, or Claire won, or whatever.
Well, another way you could do it too is you could even do the parts of the debate in video response form. And then that way
the
you have
video.
as much time
I
as
just hate
you
all this
need.
video shit because it just takes so long. Really, it's like it's like I've been talking to Vincent, and it's like he's not interested unless it's sort of showtime, and it's all talky, and nobody's listening anyway. The morons in the chat are just not listening. They're just gossiping and whatever they're
Oh,
doing.
shut up!
No,
Who
you
cares?
shut up,
Yeah,
Jen.
Alan,
You shut
Alan
up,
doesn't
Jen.
like Ayn Rand.
Why you always got to bitch about the people in the
Yeah,
chat?
because I can, and it's my stream.
Yeah, exactly. So you're not actually helping progress
No,
the
because they're
conversation.
stupid. I don't care.
You're
I don't care
commentating.
what they think, and they
Yeah,
like
you
it that
just,
that I don't care.
like stop and diffuse
No,
things.
no, no.
'Cause
You're interrupting me. I'm making a point, and
you hate logic.
I'm making the point that the quickest way to resolve this, where everybody can follow, and if they don't understand, they can add their questions, is to do it on Ask FM. On any, because they have this new thing, they can do threads now, so you can actually shift the whole thing and just give people the link, and it's got all the questions and answers on a particular question that somebody asked and answered, and the other one for the other person, and it's a really quick way of doing it, and I'd like to try that.
No.
Okay, you don't have to, Jen. You don't have to. But, anybody else who's actually interested in resolving an issue, who actually wants to test their own ideas, then they can do it. I know you're scared, Jen, but I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to Spacepan.
Insults. And then you'll come on the stream after Claire's like, Jen's afraid. Jen's so afraid of me. And it's like, what do you want to say? Well, let's talk about Ask FM and the Noahide laws. It's
or anything else. It doesn't have to be that. It can be anything else.
At all. I've never made a logical statement in my life, but I
know you haven't, Jen. You don't have to, confess that to all these people.
You can't even establish why it makes sense to distinguish between valid and sound arguments.
Well, you keep interrupting me.
Well, go ahead and establish it.
Well, obviously, a valid argument is one that would be logical. No, you see, you're interrupting me again. You're interrupting me again. You're interrupting me again.
I already know what those words mean. Why should we care about the difference?
Well, because obviously one is stronger than the other.
No, one's totally worthless. So why do we care about the one that's worthless?
No, we have to grade these different arguments in their order of precedence. So we have invalid arguments, we have valid arguments, and we have sound arguments.
Once again, you haven't established why we should care about logically.
Well, because obviously, okay, we can, Spacepan and I can do it, because obviously you will be disruptive because you don't want to have the flaws in your arguments exposed, but I've got it all transcribed.
I don't have any flaws in my arguments. I can understand.
Honestly, I could even go through and just like flow the arguments myself. So even if you guys never agree to a debate, I can cobble one together post fact with enough time and effort.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you the transcription of the actual debate that took place. That Jen managed to reduce her ideas into 7 minutes of her talking. And I responded, and she responded, and I responded. Or maybe it was the other way around. I think I was complaining because Jen had the last word. She raised all sorts of issues that I couldn't answer because I didn't have, my turn for speaking was over. So although I had, we each had 2 turns at speaking. She basically, raised all sorts of issues about my arguments that I wasn't able to respond to. Anyway, it didn't really matter.
Or often, as a balancing factor, what you do is you give the negative 2 longer chunks of speaking, and then you let the affirmative go first, in the middle, and then last. And then that way, you have equal time, but the affirmative has this advantage of being able to speak first and last, because it offsets the natural disadvantage that whoever is affirmative, they have a positive obligation. So, the negative
I was defending the affirmative, wasn't I?
No.
It depends on the resolution. So I don't even know. Yeah, what would you say the resolution is in this debate you guys are referring to?
No, it was about something completely stupid.
God is personal or impersonal. I guess it was 2 different positive assertions.
it should be
won.
should X be done, and then that would make more sense, I think.
The debate was whether God was personal or impersonal.
Well, since everybody doubts God, since most
Claire
of the
can't even
audience was
remember what
atheist
the debate
anyway.
was about. Pretty funny. It's kind
No,
of weird.
actually, I called it the deist and theist debate.
The point is that
that's
you're
a fun one.
manning.
Yeah,
You're like sitting.
we'll have to talk about that.
You're sitting here
perhaps in
to
our own
my
time.
manning a debate that I was present in, and I know for a fact it was about whether God was personal or impersonal, and now you're saying it's something that it wasn't.
Well, it was a
See, and that's the
deist
issue.
debate.
That's why so many debates go off the rails, is because there's often
This one didn't go off
the easiest way to weasel out, and I'm not accusing either of you in particular of it because I'm not familiar with the debate, obviously.
This one didn't go off the rails.
Usually,
This
what
one
happens is people they
tight.
redefine the resolution.
This was tightly controlled, and Claire was so awestruck and dumbstruck that she like couldn't even talk for her allotted time. Because at first I'm like, how long do you want to have to give your argument? She's like, 15 minutes. I'm like, I think that's going to be a little long. Might as well make it 7 minutes. And she's like, okay, fine. And then she couldn't even talk for 5 minutes. And then she blamed me for rigging the debate, which was really funny.
Well, you'll have to look at the transcripts. Because basically, Jen was saying something and it hardly made any sense. I wasn't really. It didn't make any sense. So
Is
she
it
said,
smart?
When was this, and what channel
You
was
don't
it on?
understand their position, though? Because that doesn't seem
Hold on.
smart.
It was on
Was
Jen's
this like a
channel.
year ago? This could have been any time within the last like literally 365 days. So when was this?
It was in June last year.
In June last year. Okay.
But I've got the transcript, so you can easily refer to it without wasting all that time.
Yeah, I guess I'll take a look at that. Man, you guys are keeping me busy with stuff so I have to catch up on this Molyneux JF debate, and I have to learn about the Noahide laws. And I did tell you I was going to learn about the Quran, so I actually will read it because you showed me at least one Quran verse that I liked, and I'm like, you know what? We'll see what else is there. We'll see how much of the baby I can find in the bathwater. I'm not that optimistic, to be clear, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Try to be open-minded.
Yeah, well, at least I found somebody prepared to read it. I mean, God, it took me a while. 10 years.
Oh, I'm a very slow reader. I usually fall to. I need things to be in audio form.
But it actually takes longer if you want things in audio form because don't people read quicker than they can listen?
Yeah, I have this form of narcolepsy where once I'm reading, I just immediately fall asleep.
I do that too. I think it's probably playing with our phones too much and being on the computer too long, and our eyes are already tired. So when we
probably. I think I just lack discipline. It's I need to have I don't know some other thing going in order to I guess for all the stuff to go. I'd like to just focus on something. It's too hard.
Yeah, I suppose you kind of need just read this chapter so it becomes doable. But if you say read this book, people will just not even begin to do it, But yeah.
No, exactly. But that's why I always tell people hey man, Universally Preferable Behaviour, they got an audiobook, right there for free on the website. But that one's short. That one's only 150 pages. So that one literally is within a couple of hours you can listen to the whole.
Oh, okay. It's free and it's online.
But,
I'll have
yeah,
a listen.
it's not quite perfect, but I respect the project because that was a project I was interested in when I was studying philosophy in college. Which I guess a lot of atheists they think that's like a fool's errand, which I hate. But apparently, so I guess that was JF's stance. He's a moral nihilist.
Sorry. What? Who thought what was a fool's errand?
Most philosophers, they think that the idea of they reject this idea of universalized ethics. It's very much like a libertarian project. Most people, they'll just define ethics or morality in terms of society, and they'll just basically totally cuck to moral relativism. And it's gotten so bad that if you even try to mention no, I don't believe in moral relativism, people will throw the dictionary at you and just say no. They'll use their hegemony as their essential justification, which is really just an appeal to the popularity, or even just an argument from authority. It's kind of both simultaneously, which is the curse of democracy.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Anyway.
really, my position is that you do need a hypothetical supreme being, simply because, we'll all end up saying to each other, "Who are you to tell me? Who are you? What do you know? You know nothing. You know even less than me. Blah blah blah." And we will be going, up to, up until eventually
Yeah, but logic
we
doesn't
will
need
bump
that.
into scripture. And then
Yeah,
find
but like
ourselves,
logic doesn't need that, right? If you're going to make an argument for some
Yeah,
authority's
logic
legitimacy, you're going to use logic, right? So you
logic
can't
has
avoid logic
axioms.
supremacy.
So all
Sorry,
logical
what?
statements are bound by their axioms.
I'm not so sure about that, though. I think you can make
That-
logical arguments without axioms.
all logical statements are bounded by their axioms. That's why you have to choose the correct ones, or else will have a limited spectrum of what you can describe within your system.
I think you can have premises that aren't necessarily axioms.
They still function as axioms. If something if something is not able to be proven false or true, then it's an axiom.
Right. So, and I think Molyneux actually does offer some, like the weakest part of universally preferable behavior is when he offers some potential challenges to it, which are kind of supposed to be approaching this idea of like, here's how you could, in theory, try to falsify it. And a lot of people who criticize UPB, they focus on those, which he even admits, like, oh yeah, that I was just kind of giving those, like putting those out there to help people understand the idea. Whether or not these particular examples are very strong is irrelevant to the larger argument. So he basically makes the entire argument like, I don't know, from like the 10th or 13th page, and then maybe like 20 or so pages in, and then most of the rest of the book, I'm not even sure is that necessary. But yeah, but then there are other approaches that I should probably familiarize myself with that don't necessarily rely on argumentation ethics. But I don't know, like it's
all about construction of logical arguments and undermining false logic and proffering superior logic. So the problems arise when people's axioms don't line up. So they're making logical statements that have essentially disparate meanings. So they're like, if your axioms don't line up, all of your criticisms will be a straw man, basically. So that's why you have to, at the outset, say these are the axioms and we accept the axioms. And that's how you can say, because when you're disproving arguments, you're basically proving how they contradict the axioms.
Well, that's one way. Another way to do it, though, is you can accept all of the premises of a bad argument, but then you'll find that the conclusion actually is like factually not true, which is, it's kind of a fun way to do it. But again, these are things that like people just kind of do naturally. So I think all of the discussion of like the soundness of the argument, and its validity, and like, does this all follow? And here's the logical fallacy. I can name it. I think a lot of that like ends up kind of being a red herring, because I think I really do. I believe in the smell test. With it may not be perfect, but I think it's a good approach. But
it's because the answers lie in knowledge, and knowledge is constructive rather than destructive. So there's a role for deconstructing false arguments, but the process of deconstruction of false arguments doesn't yield knowledge. It only defeats false knowledge. You need some other way to generate true knowledge, which is significantly more difficult than just defeating false arguments. It's a completely different practice. So that's the point I was trying to make to Claire before. She actually couldn't tell the difference between banning bad behavior and incentivizing good behavior. She couldn't tell the difference between that, even though I gave a very good example of banning murder versus teaching math. She literally couldn't tell the difference there.
Well, I just couldn't see the link between the two. Why even talking about it? What is your point?
Well, I think the general argument is just that it's easier to tear something down than to create something.
The point is that statecraft requires creation and destruction. Duh. And you're just focusing on destruction, and you think that creation
How am I focusing only on destruction?
The Noahide laws
Okay,
are all
You don't
let's
even
be
know-
fair though. Lashing the sluts 100 times per bastards, that's pretty constructive. That's, you know.
the Noahide laws. 6 of the Noahide laws are forbiddances, and the 7th is to institute courts of justice to impose forbiddances. It doesn't give any mechanism to manufacture benevolence, and benevolence is the source of knowledge.
What is not
Knowledge
forbidden
is
is
the source of justice.
allowed. What is not forbidden is allowed.
Knowledge is the source of justice, and justice is the source of faith that the laity places in the government, which is required for the state to continue to function.
What is not forbidden is allowed.
Exactly. You're saying if it's not forbidden, I can do it. Ha ha ha. You're not thinking I can actually go manufacture virtue. You're thinking, what vices can I get away with because they're not banned? Because you're a bad fucking person. You have no virtue. And this is the proof of that.
I don't even know what you're talking about or what you're referring
You're saying
to.
what's not banned is allowed.
Yeah.
And that's like saying you want to get away with as much as possible, so you're looking to put as lax of laws into place as possible so you can get away with as much as
all the things that are forbidden are already forbidden in the 7 Noahide laws. So what's your problem, Jen?
You're saying all I have to do is do the Noahide laws and then everything will be perfect.
I'm saying it's the Quran that you have to follow.
And that's pretty stupid because
Why?
you have no evidence to back up your fucking dumb position. You have
What
zero
evidence?
evidence.
What evidence do I need? What evidence do I need?
We've been over this before. The evidence would be, here's this great society functioning wonderfully with this religion. You can't point to that.
Okay, so what society are you modeling your society on?
Obviously, I'm going based on science.
Yeah, what society are you modeling your society on, Jen? You can't point to the thing either.
I'm using science.
What? So what society are you modeling yourself on? Does it
Well, I
even
don't-
exist? It doesn't exist either, does it?
Has existed in the past. Present
Okay, so
Wait,
that's no good.
to be Vedic, so they could be pseudo-Vedic, but they couldn't be Vedic because they're too degenerate. They wouldn't understand how to apply the rituals. So they're not going to go back to being Vedic instantly, but the point is to get on a path of science so that they'll eventually have enough knowledge to get on the path of being Vedic, which is what's going to give the best society. Oh, fuck. Alex Woodrow in the chat is harassing me with questions about God. Look, Alex, there are divine personalities. There's knowledge available in the subjective divine personality. It's not available elsewhere. Ergo, it's worthy of study, even though we don't believe the Supreme takes birth. If you don't like that, that's your problem. Okay? That's perfectly consistent logic.
I actually do want to ask you a little bit about like the mind-body distinction, and I guess intellectual property may have been something that came up, because again, I do need to actually get myself caught up on that debate. But before I do, I'm looking at
What's on
the
your
list of the
face?
Noahide laws, and you guys,
What's on your
there's
face? You got
not to eat flesh torn from a living animal. So that just means you have to kill the animal first, or does that mean you can't eat any
bits of
kind
it
of
while
meat?
it's still alive. What have you got in your face?
Oh,
It's got
I
silver
see.
stuff. Have you got a mud pack on? I've just seen your face.
Yeah, I when I was in America, we went to this like funny dollar store, and me and my friends decided to do these like silly face masks for fun, and I brought it back with me.
All right.
And I figured by putting it on the stream, it adds a visual component.
It
So
totally
now
does.
this is also I've cheated your stream into a beauty stream also.
No, it looks good. It's like it makes you look like some sort of robot thing, but things supposed
Yeah,
to
it's
be
kind of
robot.
fun. I have like a crazy color thing going on, like the silver and gold theme, because since I'm not working, I might as well just like fuck with my appearance. But anyway, yeah, but I mean, okay, so can't worship false idols. That's whatever. Don't curse God. I hate that these are the first two. Every time these are the first two, it makes me very, very skeptical, right? It's just like the idea that God cares is really funny. But then here's the one: establish courts of justice. I feel like that creates a lot of wiggle room.
Yeah,
like
we're
earlier
already
today.
under Noahide. The point is we're already under Noahide's system.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the
I mean,
point.
well, why is that?
That's
just because,
controversial,
just because
actually.
stealing and murder is
That's
illegal?
really
Is that the
not
argument?
controversial. Okay. It's like the Talmud for Gentiles. Claire, You know for a fact Noahide has been implemented in many countries already.
Not all 7 laws. It says you have to do all 7.
Oh, please.
And Islam is the one that is closest to it, shall we say. Okay, and even that is controversial. But it's like, okay,
Yeah, and for a while it was
for
Christian.
heaven's sakes,
Look how
why can't
Christianity
you
worked out.
behave
Look how
like a decent
Christianity worked
person?
out.
What's
Look how
wrong with you?
Christianity
Why
worked
do you have
out.
to behave
Look how
like a
Christianity
disruptive
worked out.
delinquent?
Christianity was Noahidism at the time.
No,
and look
I'm
how it
saying
worked
that
out.
Christianity is right at the bottom. Right at the bottom.
But
Worse than
Christianity was
Hinduism.
Noahidism at
Worse
the
than
time.
Hinduism. It ought to be right at the bottom.
Ooh, it's so bad.
Yeah.
Ooh, they hate us the most. Ooh.
Us.
They built their whole religion
Who's
around
us now?
persecuting
Who's
us.
us now?
Ooh,
You're
how
Christian now,
original.
are you? You're Christian now, are you? Are you, Jen?
What are you talking about? The Christians persecuted the pagans because they were, quote, idolaters. Ergo, Christianity is proto-Noahidism, yet you shit on Christianity endlessly.
No.
Position makes
I'm
no
going
fucking...
to make myself clear if you won't interrupt just for a minute. And I'm saying that Christianity is worse than idolatry because
I don't care.
it's a most extreme form of idolatry.
I don't care.
I know you
It's
don't care,
not.
and therefore it's blasphemy.
Hinduism is more idolatrous than Christianity, you fucking liar.
What?
Right, because it's polytheistic, has more gods. Is that the argument?
No.
Exactly. Christianity is against idolatry, which is why
it's
Bonnie
not. It's
cut
not.
down a
It's
tree
not. It's not.
of
It's
the
not.
pagans.
It's not.
I know
It's
that
not.
it's
It's not. I'm
You're
going
a
to
liar.
explain it. I'm
You're a
going
liar,
to
though.
explain
But
it.
you're a liar.
I'm going to explain it, and I'm going to explain it now. Now, what is more blasphemous to say that something that is only a creation of God should be of co-equal status to him? So it's not just idolatrous, it's blasphemy. And that was actually what Christ was crucified for. Do you understand?
Blasphemy according to who? According to the Jews?
Of
Or
course,
why are they
invented the idea. They invented the idea. They invented the idea. Nobody's denying that. They're the first people who said no idolatry. Well, everyone was.
And how's that working out?
Yeah, well, what if somebody has
now?
like
Idolatry
what if
is a Jewish idea.
And how's that working out for them?
It is a good point though that when you say no idolatry, it makes a huge difference who's saying it, right? And I don't know if we were first is the best justification. Like I would argue, if we're gonna choose a god and then say no idolatry, I would argue it should be Melania Trump. I'll make that my first rule. You can't bash Melania Trump. That's literally the only rule in my Discord is don't bash Melania Trump or I'll ban you. And why is that any less reasonable than like idolatry against against Yahweh or whatever?
No. We
We
have to understand what idolatry means and how it is defined.
Care.
Okay, Jen, just
We've
shut
already
up.
figured out.
Just shut up.
We've already
Just shut up. Just shut up. Just
whatever
shut
they
up because
say
you don't know. You don't know.
Idolatry, whatever they say it is, Claire, they define idolatry.
Yeah, of course they would define it because they were the first people to
yeah, so
ban it.
they can say anything. They're saying we're forbidding anything.
They have defined it. They have defined it properly.
No, they haven't, because
Yes,
some of them say Islam. Some of them say Islam is idolatrous. Some of them say Christianity is idolatrous.
No. The definition of idolatry. The definition of idolatry is well established.
Yes, but it's not agreed upon by the experts.
It doesn't matter. We're talking about the definition. We're talking about the definition. Why are you behaving like a disruptive child?
Because the point is that they can define idolatry however they want. They're the ones who
have defined it. They have defined it. How do they define it? Do you know how they define it?
They can redefine it, right? Because back in the day,
they have already defined it. Do you know what the definition is?
Christianity back was good in the day because they were persecuting idolaters. So Christianity was good back in the day, but then it became bad because they were worshiping Jesus. So they shifted the definition of idolatry. At first, Christianity was okay, but then it became not okay. Same with Islam, just like what Vincent said, how they're eventually going to say Islam is not okay because it's technically idolatrous. Because the only non-idolatrous system is the Noahide laws.
Spacepan,
just
what
want
were
to
you going to
say
say?
just this idea that they have a definition and a consistent standard of idolatry. I'm very skeptical of that claim because my understanding is that like most of like theology in Judaism is basically like lawyers arguing back and forth, and that's why they have so many texts, and like the Talmud is so like insane and long.
Yeah,
So like
worshiping
the idea
Am I?
that like
Am
anything
I?
is settled, I'm very skeptical.
Okay.
I would
Okay,
say
but you don't.
worshiping the
Neither
law
of you
is
know the
idolatry.
definition. Neither of you
Worshiping
know
the
the
law, that
definition of
sounds like
idolatry.
idolatry, pal.
So do you know the Jewish definition of idolatry, Jen?
Nobody cares. The point is they can shift it to whatever the hell they want.
Okay, Spacepan,
is
do you know the definition
not
of
interested.
idolatry?
We're not
Okay,
interested
I'm just going to close the stream because it's just stupid talking to you.